Are you looking to purchase a home in East Texas, but you don't really know where to start? Well, stay tuned because I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to do. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been looking at homes online and you see something that you're like, oh my gosh, it's perfect. I really want to see that home today. But in that moment, you realize, I don't know who to call. I don't know the processes. I don't know what steps I need to do to get the ball rolling on that. If that sounds familiar at all, you've come to the right place. If you're not sure who I am, I'm Rebecca Williams with Leslie Kane Realty and the Living in East Texas channel, where I talk all things real estate all the time. I'm a local real estate professional and expert in the greater East Texas area. And today I'm walking you through exactly what to expect when you want to purchase a home so that you feel confident, prepared, and protected before you ever step foot in a home. Things have changed when it comes to looking and viewing properties to purchase. As of right now, which is April of 2026, you as a buyer are required to sign a buyer representation agreement with a real estate professional before you step foot into a property. There are a couple of exceptions: open houses, and if the listing agent or someone within their brokerage shows you the home. And believe me, there is nothing wrong with that. However, you should know as a consumer buying probably your largest asset and purchase you'll ever make in your lifetime, you really need to be represented by someone who has your best interests in mind. The listing agent on any house for sale does represent the seller wholly and 100%. This is why it's super important for you to have representation with a buyer's agent. If you are local to the area, I prefer to set up a buyer consultation meeting before we ever step foot onto a property. And just being honest, it is in your best interest to do so. You could set up multiple buyer consultations with multiple agents and interview the person that you think will be the best fit for you to help you purchase a property. Whether you're a first-time buyer or you have bought homes before in the past, just know the contracts have changed probably every year at least once since I've been a real estate agent in 8 years, and sometimes, honestly, more often than that. So if it's been a while since you purchased the home, you probably still need to sit down with a real estate professional to talk about the buying process and what that entails these days. I love having these meetings because then we can sit down and discuss what are your needs, what are your wants, what are your deal breakers, what is your price point, what areas. We really dive into what you are really truly looking for. As a consumer, you need to understand the process because you are signing legal documents and contracts. Yes, people do get sued and people are allowed to sue when it comes to real estate contracts. My goal is to make sure that we are not in that position and to educate you as the consumer as much as possible to understand what documents you're signing, how it can affect things, and navigate problems as they arise throughout the process. This buyer consultation, you can consider this as your buyer roadmap to get you from point A to point B inside your new home. We will talk about your goals, your timeline, your budget, your preferred areas, and what really matters to you in your first or your next home. Just being frank, the days of going on an online platform, being able to click the button that sends you to multiple agents so that you can go look at a property today really does not serve you well. Meeting with a real estate professional beforehand saves you time and frustration, and most importantly, it does keep you from falling in love with a home that doesn't actually fit your financial or lifestyle plan. And yes, we do this before showings for a reason, because the rules that I mentioned that changed several years ago means that you need to sign a buyer representation agreement before you ever step foot into a property. This is subject to change. From what I understand, it may change later this year, but as of right now, this is a regulation for us as agents to follow to maintain our licensure and stay in good standing with the state of Texas. When I first meet with people, generally we could go look at maybe a couple of properties before you sign a long-term agreement with me. I've done 1-day agreements up to 7-day agreements. And then if you feel comfortable moving forward with me helping represent you in a purchase, then we would sign a longer term agreement. Typically, that would just be a 3 to 6 month agreement, depending on your timeline. Now, please don't let this scare you. This agreement simply outlines that I represent you, what services I provide, how I'm compensated, and that your interests are protected within the transaction. As I mentioned before, without representation, you're essentially walking into the biggest financial decision of your life without professional protection. My job is to negotiate, advise, and keep you from making costly mistakes, not just unlock doors, although I do a lot of that. Now let's talk about financing and money, everyone's favorite subject. If you're in a position to pay cash for a property, then we would need some kind of a proof of funds to be able to begin working together, because when we submit any offer on any home, all of that information actually goes on the first page of the contract. And then when we go to submit the offer, we would need proof of funds to be able to show the listing agent and the seller that you actually have the funds to be able to purchase the property. This protects both you and the seller to know that you would have the funds to be able to move forward with the transaction should they accept your offer. The next step in the process is the loan application if you're going to need to finance all or a portion of your home mortgage loan. I'm happy to provide names of lenders, but you are also able to choose whom you would like to work with. This is a super important step that so many people, for whatever reason, delay that is necessary before you ever really step foot into a property. That way we know exactly what price point and exactly what loan type, because again, there are multiple types of financing and hundreds of loan products out there. Within FHA, there's an umbrella of FHA, but there are tons of types of loans underneath that. Same thing with the conventional loan, VA loans. So underneath the umbrella, there's conventional, FHA, VA, USDA. There's fixed rates, there's variable rates, there's hundreds of loan products, and underneath each of those loan types, there's also different products. You can get a standard FHA 203B loan, or you can get a FHA 203K rehab loan. In order to keep this from being confusing, you want to be able to do this as quickly as possible before you set foot into homes for showings, because that will help you know exactly what types of properties, because not all sellers will allow all loan types. And again, all of this goes on the sales contract. So you can't submit an offer without knowing these things. And truly, you don't need to really look at properties until you know these things. You need to have expectations on your down payment, because even if a seller agrees to offer what we call closing costs or concessions to you to help you towards your purchase, there are rules and regulations related to that as well. And I don't say all this to be confusing, but this is why a buyer consultation is super important, so that you can start to learn about these processes and be educated from a real estate professional such as myself to teach you and educate you through these processes, because it is not one to be taken lightly. Once all of this is in place and we know exactly what type of loan you're approved for and what your financial situation allows you to do moving forward from there, the home search can begin. A local lender is generally best for multiple reasons, but I'll highlight just a couple. You definitely want to work with a lender within the state of Texas. If you go online to some of the bigger banks and lenders, the people that advertise a lot of times that are nationwide, sometimes, unfortunately, you are just a number. They get you qualified very quickly, and then from that point forward, once you go under contract, sometimes there are delays because of various reasons. What you really want to work with is someone local, because they are going to work very hard for you, because their business is based on referrals. And if they serve you well, be able to help, but tell other people how awesome that person is and that they helped you jump through whatever hurdles that might be necessary to get you into a home. I have preferred lender partners that I work with in the local and greater East Texas area. And of course, you are free to choose whomever you want to work with. When I trust someone and I hand their name over to you, that means that they're going to take care of you in the same way that I'm going to take care of you. It is super important, and I want to maintain both my relationship with you as the buyer and with the local lenders that I've already worked with. Good financing can make or break a smooth closing process. Once you've obtained your pre-approval, then we know exactly what price point you're in. We'll know exactly where we are on your financial side of things to know what we may need to ask for from the seller for you. And also it can help narrow down which properties we can look at, depending also on what the seller is willing to accept on the financing side of things. Once we have that lined out, then the fun can begin. We can start to schedule some showings based on the criteria that we already know beforehand and your wants and needs list. Of course, if I hear anything upcoming or off market, I will make sure that you know about that if it fits your terms. I can also set you up on a search where you'll get emails as soon as something hits the market that's new. But just being honest, most of the time, there are so many online platforms, you as the buyer are going to be sending me the property that you're most interested in. Now, while I'll run my own MLS searches to try to help find maybe a diamond in the rough or something that might work for your family, because sometimes the information in the MLS is incorrect, I can do some digging, I can contact the agent and kind of try to find something for you as well. For the most part, in my experience, buyers are on all of the platforms, even my own website or the larger well-known website, because these days, most of that information can be found easily accessible online. Very often I'll have a client, they'll send me a screenshot of a house they're looking at. I'll go on the MLS, pull all the information. There are items and things that we need to look for. Are there any special private agent remarks regarding this property that may affect your ability as a buyer to buy that home? There may be a tenant in place that may be used as a rental currently. With a few exceptions to the rule, there are also seller disclosures that are required by sellers to fill out regarding each property to tell anything that they know, any issues they've had, anything they've repaired, or that there are no known issues. Roof age, whether or not it has a septic system, what kind of septic system. If it was built before 1978, there's a lead-based paint disclosure form that a seller must fill out. So there's a lot of information that I can send to you and we can discuss before we even set up a showing to keep you from wasting your time. When you do start to view properties, it's basically a process of elimination. When we start to view properties, you're going to notice when you first drive up, is it even a possibility? Very many people know that as soon as they're in front of the house, especially if there's something unsightly next door that they didn't know about and it definitely was not on the photographs. Then when you walk into a home, is the layout going to work for you or your family? Are there items that were not revealed on the disclosures that you can plainly see? There is a lot to that process too, and this is why you need the guidance of a true real estate professional, an expert. There is a lot to the process, and I don't mean to overwhelm you, but this is why we break it down into steps so that this is what we need to do. Once we complete that, we break it down into this step, this is what we need to do, and so on and so on. Once you decide that this property is going to work for you and your family and you know you want to place an offer, then we start talking about the numbers again. I do usually tell people that I'm on your timeline. You may start looking at properties and realize, okay, we need to bump our budget up or we need to bump our budget down. It also may mean that you cannot make a purchase right away. If that's the case, I always tell my buyers and sellers, I'm on your timeline. You're not going to get pressure from me unless we are under contract and there are strict timelines, and we'll talk about that as we move along. I know there are negative connotations when someone hears that you're a real estate agent because they expect us to be salesy and aggressive and push people into doing things that they don't want to do, and I definitely do not operate like that. And honestly, I don't know a whole lot of agents that do. The truth is, it's not my payment, it's not my mortgage, it's not my loan. I'm not going to be maintaining your house. And I want it to be the right fit for you, the right time, and the best price for your family. Of course, it matters what type of properties that you are looking at. When we do start to tour homes, I always tell people I'm not being negative, but I am going to point out potential problems, potential items that I see that may not fit for your loan type. For instance, we walk into a property and you're using a VA or FHA loan, and I see multiple areas of rotted wood and or cracked and peeling paint. I know that it's very highly likely that if you go under contract on this property, that either one of those appraisers, FHA or VA, are going to call that as a loan condition to be repaired before closing. So I'm going to point those things out to you at a showing, just so that you are very aware that the seller may or may not be willing to repair those items in order to help the loan go through. I promise I will break this down as we go along, and this is just touching on the main points that I want to make as a buyer in today's market. It's very often that people are very excited when they go to start looking at homes, and you walk in and we go into the primary bedroom, and I know for a fact that you've already told me you have a king size bed and this room is this big, and the bed that's in the room is a queen. I am going to point that out. Listen, this is a queen size bed, and you see how little space there is between the nightstands and the wall. I'm not sure if a king size bed will work in this room. And again, I'm not saying it to be negative, but when you're excited about purchasing a house, it's not always the things that you need. That's why you need a real estate professional's guidance while you tour homes. Years ago, I was having a conversation with one of my clients, and I told them, I'm not trying to just sell you a house. That's just not the way I operate. I'm trying to sell you the right house that's going to fit your needs for you and your family. This is very important. So I'm going to be frank and honest with you, good and bad, when it comes to property condition, looking at things through the lens of this is the type of loan you need and this is where you're at. Are there high ticket items that are going to need a replacement soon? If we look at a house and the roof is 20 years old, we're going to need to talk about that and how that affects your offer, how it affects if the seller is willing to work with us to get the roof replaced, if insurance will pay for it, those kind of things. We're going to have all those discussions, and I'll educate you through that process if it arises while you're searching for a home. Once we find the one, the next step is we write a strategic offer. We'll negotiate the price and terms of that offer. If your offer is accepted, we'll get the inspections scheduled. We'll work through the appraisal. We'll work through the title work. And I'll be guiding you all the way through the process, educating you on each thing. One thing to note within any real estate transaction, there are multiple simultaneous processes going on at the exact same time. You've got title doing their work here. You've got the lender, if you're using one, doing their work here. You've got the seller, if they need to be doing some work to the house, over here. We may be needing a new survey and we're waiting on a survey over here. And once the lender orders the appraisal, there's a whole process that goes along with that. And all of this within a structured timeline that is on the contract. There are some upfront costs once you do go under contract. Inspections, which are actually optional but extremely highly recommended. Appraisal fees, each lender is different, but probably on average about $650 for that. There are lender fees and title company fees. Some of the title company fees are split between buyer and seller, and some are exclusive to one side or the other. Lender fees that will all be paid at closing. One thing to note that a lot of people don't realize is while there are products that might help you not have to bring as much money to closing, you may need to bring some money to the closing table. There's a lot of different aspects involved that we'll have to discuss on a personal basis. Generally speaking, your upfront fees are going to be your inspection, appraisal costs, earnest money, and option period. These are basically non-negotiables, and they are all generally paid within the first 2 weeks of the process. Your earnest money and your option period fees are due within 3 days of a signed and executed contract. And throughout all these processes, I'll be your advocate, your negotiator, and your guide. In the state of Texas, our contracts allow for what we call an option period. The option period is a period of time that you negotiate on the contract between you and the seller, a specific timeline, 5, 7, 10, 14 days, on average 7 to 10. This time period is when you would have any inspections and repair negotiations made between you and the seller. You as a buyer offer the seller a set fee on the contract, which is negotiable, but for example, $100 for a 10-day time period. This fee will apply to you as long as you close on the property. It will be debited from your closing costs. But should anything arise that gives you pause about moving forward with this purchase, this option period and option period fee that you've offered the seller can buy you the right to terminate your contract for any reason, as long as you do so by 5 p.m. Central Standard Time on the last negotiated day. So let's say if it's a 10-day period, on the 10th day by 5 p.m., you can back out of that contract to be able to be entitled to receive your earnest money back. It's a wonderful protection for you. It's a little skin in the game on the buyer's side and helps the seller feel more comfortable accepting an offer, because they know that if they accept your offer, they are going off the active market and going under contract with you. If you back out, at least it gives them a little fee for their time. The earnest money is separate. The earnest money is your good faith money that you are offering to put down with the title company. It basically opens the escrow account where all the funds will be paid out of at the end when you close. But it's also skin in the game for you as a buyer to stay true to your word that you're trying to move forward with this process of buying this property. That earnest money sits at the title company, and if you back out for any reason within the contract terms, whether that be you're having trouble with financing issues, or goodness gracious, what if you lose your job in the middle of this contract and you can back out and be able to receive your earnest money back as long as you're within the timelines that were negotiated. If you find something on the inspection, you have that option period that helps you back out. Or if, let's say, it doesn't appraise because you're using a lender in your process, if it doesn't appraise, then you can back out if the seller is not willing to either come down on their price, or we can't come to some kind of a terms during some more negotiations to get to the closing table. There are protections for your earnest money, and then there's also the potential to lose it if you try to back out of a contract when those protections are not valid or not in place anymore. This is why you need a real estate professional to guide you through these processes, and why it's not really a choice to be made lightly. You really want to choose someone that knows what they're doing, has tons of experience doing it, and has your best interests in mind, knows the market, and can help guide you in the easiest way possible, because you are making the largest purchase of your life. It is not to be taken lightly, and it can be very stressful. If you're thinking of buying a home in East Texas, I would love to be your guide, but I want to help you do it the smart way, with a plan, but no pressure. If you're local, you can schedule a buyer consultation with me either through a Zoom meeting or in person. I'll put my Calendly link below. If you're out of state, we can have a Zoom meeting or FaceTime, whatever seems to work, or just a phone call. Feel free to text, call, or email me. All of my information is here with the video. And if this video has helped you learn a little bit more about the buying process, I would love for you to like and subscribe the video, maybe share it with a friend of yours that you know might be in the real estate market soon. I have tons of videos about different areas of East Texas if you want to scroll through and look for more videos. And I would be thrilled for you to subscribe to the Living in East Texas channel, where I video so you guys will know what it's like to live in beautiful East Texas. I film different videos in different areas, which if you're a first-time buyer and you don't really know where you want to be, may help you. So check out some of my other videos. And again, I'm Rebecca Williams with Leslie Kane Realty and the Living in East Texas channel, and I would be thrilled for you to like, subscribe, follow, share, give me a call if you are interested in buying or selling a property. As you can see, there's a lot to the process and it can be confusing, and I would love to be your guide to make it less confusing and get you into your new home. Thanks so much. Have a great day.